Welcome to the VRC setup guide for new controllers. First place to start will be right here. If you don't know where to find it, you can just go to this link or Google Virtual Radar Client or maybe VRC VATSIM. Those will all bring you to here. And then you, of course, just go to the download section and you can click this. It will download VRC and you can go ahead and run the installer and then go through the normal process to set it up. I will skip that since I already have it installed. So once you have it installed, if you go ahead and launch it, you'll see I do have a bunch of profiles in here. But what you'll have is just this one, this default. So we'll go ahead and leave that one selected and click OK. And you'll see that it'll bring up this tiny window with nothing useful in it. And this will also be open. We can just close that for now and maximize this so we get a little more space to work with. So I'm just going to go through it kind of top to bottom, left to right. So File, New Window. You can do that to make new windows, and you can, align them however you want. You just have to know, of course, that the little 1 here and the 2 there indicates what order they were in. So your primary window is going to be this one that has the number 1 there. So that's the one that's going to have your chat box, whereas this one won't. And if you use 3D mode, it will only work in the first window. So we'll go back to maximize here, and the next thing obviously is going to be open sector file. So this is going to be the file that you download from the website on the controller downloads page. So that's of course in here, controllers, controller downloads. That'll bring you to this page. You'll see our facility files, the sector file right here. That's the one that we're going to download. I'll go ahead and download them again, I guess. So we'll just go to download there. Okay, I've got that. Go ahead and open it. And looks like it's zipped. So I will just export this somewhere. Okay, let's maybe go to the desktop and we'll make a new folder called VRC, right? So we'll just put this in there. This is not the place that I would actually do this. I would find some more logical place to put it. Where I have all of my stuff is in Dropbox folders. So put that wherever you would like to keep it permanently. It will have to stay there. You cannot delete it after you set it up. So I'll just leave it in here for now. It's on the desktop. So once we're done with that, we'll close this, go back to here, to our desktop, that little folder that we created. And you'll see that sector file there. So we'll just go ahead and do that to open. And you'll see now we have some stuff in here, right? We can zoom in and out with the scroll wheel, and you'll see a little bit of information already showing up. We'll get back to that later. Obviously, file connect is how you connect to the network. We'll deal with that later on. And then down here is going to be how you make different session profiles. So what that means is you can have different setups for VRC. So what we're going to do is we're going to make one for Tampa. So our two primary training fields for miners are Tampa and Fort Lauderdale. So you're going to want to have definitely one for each of those, and probably for the other miners, and eventually for Miami, and maybe an observer profile. But generally speaking, the way it works is you just need one profile for each airport, and it will be usable for tower positions and lower. So clearance, delivery, ground, or tower at a given facility. So we're going to make one for Tampa. And then there's 5 simple things you'll have to change once you make that one to kind of save new profiles from that one, so it has all the good stuff that we're about to set up. So this first one will take a little bit longer, but after that it's real quick to make additional ones from that. So we'll save this profile as I probably don't want to call it this because I already have one like that. We'll call it, I'll use the K. Tampa Tower. There you go. So you should probably name yours this, but I'm going to have to put in the K because I already have one that is called that. Okay, so that's done. We'll go Settings, Radar Mode. This should be set to Ground. And the reason for that is just because of the information it displays for tower positions and lower. The way that this works is it's just the most convenient. Your instructor can explain in additional detail if you're curious, but I would highly recommend, unless you already have something else set up that you are happy with, you should definitely just keep with ground radar mode for all positions, tower and lower. Color profile, you can change this to whatever you want. Different color profiles. Let me find one that will definitely be, this should be different. No, maybe not. There you go. So some of them have different color settings for whatever reason. We'll just go back to the default. And of course, whenever you select anything down here at the bottom, modify current, you can go through and you can change the colors of anything that you want pretty much. Let's see. Okay, filters, that has to do with altitude filters. So if you wanted to, say we're making a tower profile, so if we didn't want to see airplanes above a certain altitude, then we could say I don't want to see anybody up in the flight level. So we'll say 17.9 and below is what I want to see, and then you can determine whether or not you want to show targets or don't show the data tags, but show the targets themselves. We don't need to worry about any of that though. Settings general, miscellaneous tab. So your alias and POF file, those are both going to be downloaded off of the controller downloads page that we had open a moment ago. I will bring it back up. Website's kind of slow. There we go. So there it is. So this same place that we just were, alias file and position file. So we'll go ahead and download each of those. And then we'll bring our little folder up here, right? So the POF, oops, that's kind of annoying. Let me do that. All right, so we got the POF, we'll put that in there. Good. And the alias file, we will put that in there. Okay. Go ahead and put that back over there in case I need it again. And then we'll load our alias file from that folder. And our POF file from that folder. Good, we'll click apply. Nothing over here we care about. On the right side, we do want to check assign squawk codes in random order. Otherwise, it will start at the bottom of the range and count up. So your squawks will be 0701, 0702, 0703, 0704. Not very realistic, kind of goofy. Hotkeys, aircraft select key, and the controller select key. You don't really use this one for much of anything, but this is a very interesting key, especially in VRC. Many things that you are going to have to do in order to execute them, you'll have to use this key. So if you don't change it, it's the number pad plus key. If you don't have one of those, obviously you're going to have to change it to something. Maybe the backslash would be a good one to use because this controller select key is, I have never had to use that in my entire life. So it just has to do with, sometimes you use the enter key for stuff and sometimes you use the aircraft select key for stuff. It'll depend on the situation, but you definitely want to know what that key is set to. Airspace. So your visibility range, what you can do, since nobody is ever able to remember, including me, is just Google VATSIM visibility, if I could spell visibility range, right? And you'll see a forum post right there. And right there they have the guides for you, right? So delivery or ground up to 20 miles, tower up to 50 miles. So let's say we're making this for ground. Then we would just set this down to 20. And then our arrival and departure fields, we want to fill those up with the airport that this profile is for. So we'll put Tampa in there, obviously with the K in both cases. And that'll cause flight strips to be generated. Data tags, we don't really need to do anything in this area. Flight strips, we want to check auto add, arrival, and departure strips, as well as delete strip when pushed manually. You can change colors if you like. Conflict alerts, we will take this down to 1 nautical mile, and that's because 6,000 feet is the same runway separation distance that we need, and 6,000 feet give or take, is going to be 1 nautical mile. So that way, if we left it up at 5, then any airplanes that were remotely near each other would be lighting up red and beeping for no reason when they are perfectly separated. So we'll just put that down to 1. Everything else is fine. Button bar we don't care about. Okay, settings ATIS maker. This is old. It might still work, but I don't believe so. Color profiles, I don't know. You can do stuff with that. Sounds, this is one thing I recommend. If we go to the reminder and I play this sound for you. Sorry if it blew your eardrums out. It is very, very annoying, especially because it's going to go off every 30 seconds if you have any aircraft in your request list, which is a thing that your instructor will go over with you. So what I like to do is I like to change it to the much more gentle broadcast sounds. We'll just go select, and then we have to navigate to our My Documents folder. And the VRC folder within there. So this isn't actually where I installed VRC. I installed VRC, in the normal place, program files, and VRC, but there's going to be nothing in there that we want. We actually have to go to the My Documents and VRC, and then you'll see a sounds folder, and we're going to choose broadcast. So then you'll see on the reminder it will now have this nice softer sound. That one. So that's much better, and will drive you a little bit less nuts, hopefully. Audio devices and calibrate mic, you don't have to do that anymore because we have a separate client for the voice communications. View. So there's a bunch of stuff that's shown. There's a section of 5 things up at the top. You can leave those alone. Otherwise, my recommendation, believe it or not, I turn all of this stuff off. You can leave anything that says labels, you could leave that on, but I want all of the stuff turned off. Right, so boundaries, regions, and geography. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to view diagrams, and we can hit clear just to make sure there's nothing selected. Nothing should be selected by default. We'll start on the right side. Go down to the bottom, and this will bring us to the video maps that we have. So we're going to turn on, since it's a Tampa profile, we're going to turn the Tampa video maps. So North Ops, South Ops, and Satellite. And then you'll see there's all these markings on the screen. This is what the approach controllers use to work the approach control airspace. So this is the Tampa TRACON airspace. Reason we care about it is because then we can see the extended center lines for the approaches. We can see other airports in the area. There are other ways you can do this within VRC, like you can turn on runways and runway center lines. And then if I turn all this off, you'll still be able to see the same stuff. So maybe if you prefer that, that would work, but I think it's not a bad idea to expose yourself to what you will eventually be looking at and the same thing that the other controllers are looking at. So North Ops, South Ops, and Satellite is what we like to have on here at Tampa. And then we'll go down the left side and look for the Tampa ASD. So that will show us right here, the Tampa Airport. If I turn it on, Tampa ASD, right? So now this shows us the runways and the taxiways and the terminals and all the parking and buildings in the area and such. So that should be all. I guess we could also, if we scroll up, here we go. You can turn on the Tampa Class Bravo, Class Deltas in the area, the Class Charlie Sarasota, and the Mode C Vail. You could turn those things on for additional information. For tower purposes, we don't really need that, but if you'd like to see it, that's where you would go to turn that on. So I will turn those off personally, and we will move on from there. So now back to the View tab. The only thing in here that's actually helpful is you'll see there are no labels here. So unless you're going to memorize what every single taxiway is at every single airport in the entire RTEC, which I guess you could, static text is going to be your friend. You turn that on, and then you see labels everywhere. So that will make it very, very easy for you to tell what is what and who is where. So that's it for the View tab. Tools. You see there's a bunch of tools in here. I'm not going to go over them in detail, but just a quick note that the order in which they appear in this list, you can also use the Alt key and that number, like the top row of numbers, not the number pad above the letters. So this is the second in the list, the controller list. I can do Alt 2 to toggle it on and off, Alt 1 to turn on the flight strip bay, so on and so forth. And a couple helpful guides in here. So the only other thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to set our visibility center, right? So if you remember back where we were in here, we said our arrival and departure fields are here, and our visibility range is 20 miles. That means we can see 20 miles away. So if we do a dot show vis, just like this, dot showvis, that will show us where we can see. And I happen to be centered on Tampa, so it is like that. But if I move, you'll see how my visibility center is wherever the center of my screen is. And that's because I haven't set it to a particular place. So if I move away from Tampa a little bit, and the ring is like just outside of it, I'm not going to see any airplanes on the ground at Tampa. So that's not good if I'm Tampa ground. So the way we set that is with the VIS command. So we'll do .vis and Tampa, because that's obviously where we would want it to be centered. But you could do any fix or anything, and then you'll see when I move around, it is actually snapped to Tampa. So now that that's done, let's also go in here, and we'll look briefly at our controller downloads again. So if you look down here at reference documentation, there's this approved ATC positions and sectors PDF. And if we open that up, that has all of the control positions that we have throughout the entire facility, whether it's a tower or approach or center or anything. They're all going to be. Why did that do nothing? How inconvenient. Okay. There we go. But anyway, when it comes up, pretty much all we're going to have to do is we're going to fill in all of the Tampa positions. Here we go. So we'll look for Tampa Tower and below, since that's what we're making, right? So Miami cab, Tampa cab, here we go. So we've got Tampa West Tower, ground and delivery, and East Tower. So all we want to do is put in each position just as they appear. So we'll do Tampa West Tower and 119.5 like that. And for whatever reason, you can't just put 119.5. It'll yell at you and ask for 3 digits. So we'll do 0.500, and then we will just hit save, and we'll have that one saved in there. And then I like to put them organized by type. So I'll have the East Tower in here, 119.05, so on and so forth, right? So ground, oops, 21.4, and Tampa delivery, 128.4. Okay, so now that that's all in there, what that does is that allows us to set our primary frequency. So if we sign on, here, I'll go on to the sweatbox. Oh, actually I can't. We can set that up in just a moment. So what that does is, you see how it says set prime frequency here? So we have to set our primary frequency based on the position we're working. So if we're working Tampa ground, we would check that one, and it would automatically pull the frequency that we put in there, and it will set our frequency to that. And then when we launch audio for VATSIM, it will see that we've set this as our primary frequency, and it will also set up on that. So once it's all set up, all we have to do is look at, which position we're working and check the primary box next to it, and everything is all hunky-dory. Okay, so let's do the sweat box next. Everything should be good here. So let's set up the 3D mode first. So if you go settings, radar mode, 3D, you'll see that we are in the middle of, I don't know where. I think it's like in the middle of the Everglades. So all I have to do is do set 3D center space the place. So we'll go to Tampa. And then you could also do like set 3D altitude and an altitude of, I don't know, maybe like 500 feet or whatever. Now what this does is this gives you a 3D mode, and you can see little airplanes that are like paper airplane shape, and they move in smooth motion rather than them kind of jumping position and updating like a radar in a lot of the other views. So let's see, so we can right click and drag to look around. We can zoom with the scroll. We can control and scroll to move up and down. And we can hold both the left and right mouse buttons to actually reposition ourselves. Just be careful with that. It is very sensitive. I recommend you kind of look down at your feet and then move around like that. It's just a lot, you go a lot slower if you're looking down than if you're looking out. You go a lot faster. So that's pretty much. That is a handy thing to have. And that should be it. So we'll go ahead and go File, Save Session Profile. And then let's say you were told to connect to the Sweatbox. We would go here, we'd put all our information in. It'd be our CID, name, I guess that'd be our call sign that we're going to have on the network, our name, facility, which would be what type of controller we are and what our rating is, our CID and password, and then down here you would go to choose Sweatbox. Now, you may not have Sweatbox in your list. You probably won't. So, in order to get it in your list, make sure we save session profile. We'll close this out, and then we'll go back into that same VRC folder in My Documents, right? So you'll see this servers.txt file. This file has all the servers in it. And just like the format of what we see here, we need to add the Sweatbox. But the problem is we can't do it in this file because this file is automatically generated. Each time VRC runs, it's going to overwrite anything that you put in there. So you just make this myservers.txt file, just like this, new text document, name it myservers.txt like I've done. And then all you have to put in there, you don't need this last one. All you have to put in there is sweatbox.vatsim.net space sweatbox. Then you save it and close it. Restart VRC. And then when it comes back up, you should have the sweatbox on there. So we'll load up that profile we just made. That's this one here. And that's it. So we're all good to go with this profile. Now the only other things we'll need in order to make other profiles, we'll go ahead and make a Fort Lauderdale one because it's going to be super fast, right? So we'll just take this one, save session profile as Fort Lauderdale Tower, and then we can go back to the ground view. Right, so now that we're saving a Fort Lauderdale Tower, you see it says the name of the profile up top. So we'll just save real quick, and there's 5 things we have to do. So the first one I would do is bring up the maps and ASDs so we can see. So let's just go clear, and then let's bring up the ASD map, Fort Lauderdale ASD. You'll see a little bit of color popped up, so then we can find Fort Lauderdale. There it is. And Fort Lauderdale happens to fall within the Miami approach control. So on the right side, we're going to look for the Miami TRACON. Right, so here's the video maps for Miami. You got E-stops, west stops, departure, full, handoff, blah, blah, blah. So the one that is got everything is this Miami full. If you turn that on, then you'll just be able to see everything, right? So here's Fort Lauderdale, here's Miami, and you can see the entire Miami airspace with all sorts of markings with it. So those 2 are done. We will update the arrival fields in settings general. Right, so Fort Lauderdale, Fort Lauderdale. Okay. We will update the frequencies in here. So it would be Fort Lauderdale Tower, whatever else is in this document here, right? So Fort Lauderdale North Tower, Ground Tower, South, or delivery and south tower. So just like we did before, you would set all of those up so that you could, log into this profile and choose any of those frequencies easily. ASDI maps we already did, and then we would move to 3D center, right? As well as the visibility center. So if we went to 3D mode, you'd see you can kind of see how we're looking at the Tampa airport, if you recognize the shape of it just by the letters. So all we got to do is move ourselves, set 3D center, Fort Lauderdale, enter. And now, there we are, we're right on top of it, up high. So we'll just move over a little bit. Whoa. And move down. There you go. So now we've got that aligned properly. You can move yourself wherever you want. Let's see, and then also we'll go back to a normal ground view. Then we just have to make sure to remember our visibility center. That's the last thing, right? So if you do .show viz, you'll see with a new profile, it's still not set to anything. So we just got to lock it to Fort Lauderdale. And there you go. It's all good to go. The ring shows us our distance as well. So fun fact of the day, with that 20-mile range, you'll be able to see Miami because it's only about 18 miles away. So, but that's it. Those are the only 5 things we have to do. We have to move the visibility center, update arrival and departure fields in settings general, update the frequencies in the communications panel, update the ASDI maps and video maps, and move the 3D center. That's all that we have to change in order to make a new profile. You might want to make perhaps an observer profile, which we could do. Observer, like that. And then, I don't know, maybe you could turn on Palm Beach, Fort Myers, Tampa. Yeah, there you go. And then maybe you could put the center boundaries on or something like that. You could put all the ASDI maps on. And then the only other thing to change would be, since our visibility is currently tiny, it doesn't need to be when we're an observer. As an observer, we can set it as high as 300 miles. So if I turn it up to 300 and then do .show viz again, you'll see that we can see the whole airspace. And you can also make multiple visibility centers if you wanted. So if you wanted, you could see even a little further, right? You could go to Tampa and Miami, right? So that would give us a wider area. So anything within either of these circles we would see. And then you don't necessarily have to do anything with this, because you could just pull up the frequencies of anyone that you wanted to monitor through the Audio for VATSIM client. But that's pretty much it. You'll notice since we came back here that Sweatbox will now be an option. If that didn't work for you, you can just ask your instructor when you meet with them. But other than that, with that, you should be all set to go with the initial setup for VRC. Make sure you have at least a Tampa profile and a Fort Lauderdale profile ready to go by the time of your first session. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to email any of the instructors. But until then, yeah, that's it.